Okay, so here's going to be my recording for this test review. And as always, folks, if you feel like you need to, make sure you go ahead and pause me, rewind me, do whatever you have to try to make sure you can get to understand me. Because I like to talk fast, and you know I do. I can go really fast. No, I'm just kidding. So, the first couple of questions talk to you about simplifying. So how do you simplify? Well, if you have a monomial like 24 and 32, which means there's no plus or minus in with it, you just break it up to its prime factorization. So 24 breaks up to a prime factor of, like, say, let's say 24, 4 times 6. Well, 4 can break up to 2 and 2. 6 can break up to 2 and 3. So the prime factorization of 24 is 3 2's and a 3. Okay, you look at the next numerator. Notice that I'm trying to put these all together. That's when you have x squared and an x, then think that you can factor out a greatest common factor. So that one I could take out an x, and that leaves me with an x minus 6. But if you have x squared minus a number, just x squared minus a number, then you can go ahead and factor that to be x plus and x minus the square root. And what's the square root of 36? It would be 6. 32, the prime factorization of 32 is 5 2's. That's like 4 times 8. 4 would break up to 2 and 2. 8 would break to 4 and 2. 4 would break to 2 and 2. Okay? What can cross out? That's all you're worrying about here. So I got 3 sets of 2's that can cross out. I have an x minus 6 that can cross out. And that's it. Whatever you're left with is your answer. And that's how I want it written. Like, say 3x and then say 2 times 2 is 4. And leave it like that. If you wanted to, you can write it as x plus 6 times 4 over there, or you could even put 2 and 2 and just not say multiply it to get 4. I don't care, but I do prefer it in the factored form. Number 2 is dividing by fractions. So when we divide, we got to multiply by the reciprocal. So the first thing you should do is flip it, and then you're going to say, all right, plus plus is a plus plus. So I'm going to put that here. Now, if you need to remember that, you need to remember, like, say, the whole table that you're supposed to have for the plus, 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 plus type thing. Let's show you that. So if you need this table for your factoring, then have this table. You know, plus plus is plus plus, minus plus is minus minus, plus minus is plus minus, minus minus is minus plus. Add for the first two, subtract for the second one. The bigger number should be always on the left. And if I have to make some changes to that, I'll do that. Pause me if you need to, because I'm going back. And we're back. So what two numbers multiply to give you 28 and add up to 11? That would be 7 and 4, which I mean, I guess technically I should rewrite that as, let's say, 7 and 4 there. But, you know, whatever works would work. Okay, and then from there, you're supposed to say, what's the prime factorization of the 21? Well, that's 3 times 7. And then there's 3 x's and 2 y's. Then on the bottom, I've got a 2 times 7, 2 x's, 1 y, and then here, 3x minus 12, both those are divisible by 3. So again, something like this, look for a greatest common factor that you can take out. I can take out a 3, and I'm left with an x plus 4. Okay, so what cancels out? I've got the x plus 4's canceling out. I've got this 3 canceling out. I've got this 7 canceling out. I've got 2 sets of x's canceling out. And I've got 1 y. And when that's all said and done, all I'm left with is an x plus 7 on top with an x and a y. And on the bottom, all I'm left with is a 2. And that's my answer. Leave it like that. I don't expect anything else beyond that. Alright, again, how do you do these type of problems with the LCMs, the least common multiple? For the ones that are just like monomials, like say number 3, all you got to do is for the numbers is press menu 2-4 and do the first two numbers. So the LCM of the first two numbers, take that answer, and then do the same thing, menu 2-4 with the answer and the third number. For the variables, all you got to do is go ahead and plug them in and give me the highest exponent, and then you can do the numbers and you should get like 352. For number 4, you've got to factor. Okay, so you factor, and like again, you go back to those factoring rules. Minus minus is minus minus. I'm sorry, minus plus is minus minus. And then what two numbers multiply to give you 72 and add up to 17? That would be 9 and 8. Okay, minus minus is a minus plus. What two numbers multiply to give you 54? Subtract to give you a 3, 9, and 6. Okay, so what do they have in common? They have an x minus 9 in common. What can I add from the left? The x minus 8. What can I add from the right? X plus 6. And that is the answer I expect to see. That's it. Okay, so these really shouldn't be that hard to factor, and they hopefully should be fairly easy. Okay, so let's look at number 5. All you're doing here is trying to go ahead and combine like terms. So I don't care the order. I mean, I prefer to have, okay, is there anything to go with this 5x? 11x. So 5x plus 11 is 16x. Is there anything to go with the 5? Minus 5? No. And I wrote minus 5 here at the bottom. I have no clue why. That should be a 7. And is there anything to go with the 2x squared? No. You can leave it like that. I mean, if you want to write it in correct order of 2x squared plus 16x minus 5, that would be great. But either answer I would take. Okay? So all you got to do there is combine like terms. Find their like terms, combine them, and you're done. Fairly simple, because the denominators here are the same. So keep in mind that that's because the denominators are the same. You can only do this when the denominators are the same. You look at number 6, and you've got the same thing, but this time you've got a minus in between. So keep in mind that the minus is going to have to change the numerator of the second fraction. So everything in the second fraction will change. So I'm going to change the minus to a plus. That means the positive 2x will become negative. The 3x will become negative, and the minus 15 will become plus. So then when I start combining like terms, I'll have 6 minus 2, which is 4, negative 12 minus 3, which is negative 15, and 25 plus 15, which is 40. So the minus there changed these the second numerators. Okay, on the next one, notice here I've got, say, the numerators are different, but they're already factored. So you have to come up with an LCM to help you come up with the common denominator. What's the least common multiple? Okay, what do they have in common? They have a 3. What can I add from the left? An x minus 1. What can I add from the right? An x plus 4. Whoops, let's try that again. Okay, so you can see here that I had a 3, x minus 1, x plus 4. And then from there, that's going to be my common denominator. So to work with this, what is missing from the left fraction that I can multiply it by? I'm missing the x plus 4, so I'm going to multiply by x plus 4. 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 4 is 20. What's missing from the second one? The x minus 1, so I'm going to say 11x minus 11. Combine my like terms. 5 plus 11 is 16. 20 minus 11 is 9. And notice I'm not messing with the denominator once I did the multiplication part. And that's your answer. That's it. That's the way I expect to see the answer. I want them factored because there's an important reason for that. Number 8 is kind of the same thing. The only difference is there's a minus. So be careful with that. Now what do they have in common? That's what you start off with. They have in common an x plus 3. So what's missing from the left? X minus 3. What's missing from the right? X minus 7. And again, that combines. See, once you do this, the one that's in front, the one that they have in common, you can kind of ignore because it will not multiply the numerators. Now, what's missing on the left fraction is the x minus 7. So 9 has to multiply the x minus 7. That would give me 9x minus 63. What's missing from the second one? Notice I'm putting a minus, and I'm going to put parentheses. I'm missing an x plus 3. No, I'm sorry, x minus 3. So I'd multiply 4 times that, and I would get 4x minus 12. Now that minus is going to distribute and change the sign of the second, or that parentheses, and that would give me 9x minus 63 minus 4x plus 12. Combine your like terms, and then you end up with your answer. And again, notice all these, you're just trying to combine like terms. I have no idea what that extra stuff is. Alright, any questions on that? Oh wait, you can't ask me questions because it's a video. Ha ha. Anyways, moving on. Number 9. Okay, number 9 was where I started to make you like say factor, to say start realizing what the least common multiple, or what would help you find the greatest common denominator. So you have to factor the x squared minus 16, and you have to realize that that becomes x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay, and if that's the case, what do they have in common? Both fractions, they both have an x plus 4. What can I add from the left? I can add an x minus 4. What can I add from the right? Not a darn thing. Okay, so if that's my common denominator, that means the first fraction already has both denominators. So there's nothing you can do to that. So it's just rewrite 13x minus 11. The second fraction I can multiply by what's missing, which was the x minus 4, which would give me 7x minus 28. Then I can combine my like terms, and again, I'm done. That's all you've got to do. See, these should be fairly simple because all you're trying to do is combine like terms. And then you go from there. Number 10, same thing. I'm going to let it play through. Notice here that these two are different in the sense that the first fraction I can take out an x, so that's greatest common factor. But the second fraction is an x plus x minus. And the difference between those, notice, is that one has an x and one didn't have an x in that last term. Okay, so what do they have in common? They have an x minus 5 in common. What's missing from the left? An x. What's missing from the right? A plus 5. So I'm writing this in this order so that way I can say that the x minus 5 is what is in common. I can forget about it. So the first fraction, it's missing the x plus 5, so I'm going to multiply by that. 4 times x plus 5 is 4x plus 20. The second fraction is just missing an x, so I can just say minus 7x. Combine my like terms, and I'm done. And that should be my answer. No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, number 11. Alright, so for this problem, you got to factor both of them. If you factor both of them, plus plus is plus plus. So I try to keep it simple. Two numbers that multiply to give you give you 10 and add up to 7 is 5 and 2. The next one is 6, plus plus also, and that's 4 and 2. So what they have in common, they have an x plus 2 in common. What can I add from the left? Add x plus 5. What can I add from the right? An x plus 4. So that means my least common multiple is that. X plus 2, x plus 5, x plus 4. So notice here, I'm trying to, again, always write what I have in common, left, then right. Because that common one, that x plus 2, I don't need to worry about anymore. So now I'm going to multiply the 3x minus 4 times the x plus 4. So 3x times x. Notice how I'm going to do this. This is actually two sets of parentheses. So I really should be thinking like this here is in parentheses. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 4 is 4x. I'm sorry, 12x. 3x times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Alright, negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. On the second one, I can multiply that one just by x times x plus 5, which would give me 7x plus 35. Then all I got to do is combine like terms. Notice 12 minus 4 plus 7 is 15, and negative 16 plus 35 is 19. And that's your answer. And that's it. So it's a fairly simple question, but you got to do a little bit extra to that. Alright? Okay, number 12. I need to multiply by the LCM to get rid of the fraction. And the LCM here is d plus 1 and d minus 2. You multiply the first one by d. If you write d plus 1, d minus 2, the d plus 1s would cancel out, leaving you 2 times d minus 2. On the second one, the d minus 2s would cancel out, leaving you d 1 times d plus 1. Every time you see parentheses, think distribute, multiply. And then you can say, here, combine like terms if there was any like terms combined, which there isn't. Say numbers, variables to the left, numbers to the right. And you've got your final answers there, and there you go, you're done. Number 13, I'm going to say, what's my least common multiple? And my least common multiple is just the 2q plus q plus 1. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, notice here what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the numerators, and then I'm going to kind of fill in the blanks. So for the first fraction, the 2 q's would cancel out, leaving me 5 times q plus 1. For the second fraction, the q plus 1 would cancel out, leaving me 2q. And the number that was on the left that had no fraction is just going to multiply the LCM. Okay, so all of that would look like this, a little bit cleaner, I guess, because some people were complaining about my handwriting. And then, okay, 2 times 2q is 4q. 4q times q is 4q squared. 4q times 1 is 4q. 5 times q is 5q. 5 times 1 is 5. And then I've got 4q squared, because 2q times 2q is 4q squared. The 4q squares would cancel each other out. So then I'm left with a 4q equals 5q plus 5. Move the 5q to the left. That gives me negative 1q is equal to 5. Divide by negative 1, and I would get q equal negative 5. All this steps right here that I'm talking about are, say, simple algebra steps that you should be able to know and do. Oh my goodness, this is a long review, but we're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. Okay, this next one, the LCM here, if you notice that the 10 is divisible by 5, so then that means that I can go, the lowest common multiple would be 10x, because 5 can go into 10, into the 10. So multiply that. You got 14. The x's would cancel, leaving you 14 times 10. The second fraction, the 10s would cancel, leaving you 3 times x. And on the third fraction, you've got 10x. That would leave you with 3 times 10 divided by 5, 2x. You multiply, and that would give you 140 equals 3x equals 6x. Subtract the 3x, and that would leave you with another 3x. So for those of you who aren't seeing what I'm doing, I'm subtracting 3x here. And then you can say divide by 3 to get 140 over 3. And that's your final answer. There is a second way you can do this problem. The second way you can do this problem is to write basically all three denominators together to make your common multiple. Your numbers will be different, but you will have the same final answer. So that way, when I go x, 10, and 5, the x's cancel out, leaving me 14 times 10 and 5. X, 10, and 5 on the second one cancels out the 10s, leaving me 3x and 5, or 3 times 5x. The 5's cancel out in the last fraction, leaving me 3 times 10x, and then I go through the same process. The numbers will be slightly different, but you will end up at the same final answer of 140 over 3. And that's pretty much it for that one. Okay, so that's number 14. Let's look at number 15. Alright, number 15, oops, I showed a little too much there. Let's try that again. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is go ahead and factor the n squared minus 4, which again, anytime you see n squared minus, you say n plus, n minus, square root of 4 is 2. So that means my least common multiple is n plus 2, n minus 2. The n plus 2's would cancel out on the first one, leaving me 1 times n minus 1. Second one, the n minus 2's would, n minus 2, I'll fix that in a second. Right about now. Okay. The n plus 2 minus 2's would cancel out, leaving me 1 times n plus 2. And on the third fraction, they both cancel out, leaving you just a 3. Distribute, combine your like terms, and then you can see I can divide and finally get my final answer on that one. So that one's that for that, and you can kind of see how I was kind of canceling everything out. So that way I can kind of do this. Alright, so let's look at our final problem. I'm getting tired anyway. Okay, so here you need a factor. And you got k minus minus plus is minus minus, and notice that it's k minus 3 and k minus 4, which is the same as the other two. So my least common multiple is k minus 3, k minus 4. The k minus 3's would cancel out, leaving me k minus 4. The k minus 4's would cancel out, leaving me a k minus 3. Multiply. And then you can combine like terms. And then you can divide. I'm sorry, add or subtract. And I'm writing the least common multiple because somebody had a question about that. And then I'm adding 24 and then divide by 7. And that would be my final answer, k plus 7. I should be there for tutoring in the morning. If you do have any questions, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Y'all take care.